So we've passed the bottom shock mount here into both shocks, the OEM shock absorber and the new Elka Stage 4 shock absorber. I do that primarily purely to check center to center, make sure everything is cool before I get it into the skid. During the install, we're going to introduce grease to the pivots. Quite often on the OEM shock absorbers, we don't see a lot of grease in the pivot bushings. We can see that this bushing came out of the shock bone dry, and they will rust. Snowmobiles are a very harsh environment with cold and warm when they warm up with friction, and that draws water into all these pivot points, and corrosion starts immediately. So it's a good idea, pull your skid apart, grease up every pivot there, so that you stop the ability of the pivots to rust, and you also gain that very light bump compliance. When your pivots are rusty, it takes quite a bit of friction through a bump hit to actually initiate movement in the skid. So if you can keep grease on all of the pivot points, the snowmobile will ride better than new for long periods of time, and you'll really get your labor back doing that. The Elka shock lower pivot mount, and then we can see the imprint here from where it was already rubbing from the 3 kilometers the machine has on it, and liberally apply grease there. We use a high viscosity, it's a low temperature but high viscosity grease that really stays in there well over long periods of time. Pass it in. Just good. We've shut the rebound adjusters on the new Stage 4 Elka shock. The Stage 4 has compression and rebound, and we would never run them shut. You'll see when I push on it, it's way too slow, but it tells me that the valving, the high-speed valving inside the shocks is nice and tight and working well. So we'll give this a deep push. You can see that's 6, 7, 8 seconds for a full recovery. So we've opened the rebound fully on the shocks, the center and the rear shock. And again, we would probably never run it there either, but it's showing how quick we can get the adjustment of the rebound. So we can see the massive change from full shut to full open. And that is, as I suspected, too fast. I said we're targeting about a 1.5 second recovery from a deep push, and that's closer to 1 second. So we're in the ballpark, but I'm going to slow it down a little bit for our first ride. So we've got the skid set. We set the rebound first. The rebound has a slight effect on compression, so it's always good to set the rebound first. And then we're going to start with the compression adjusters wide open, ride the sled, test it, and then close the compression adjusters based on our feel, our input feel, and how far our tie wraps are going on the shafts. So now we're up front here. We did the same thing. We're gonna adjust the rebound until we've got that nice kind of 1.5 second recovery from a deep push that we're looking for, and use that as our starting point. So that's good there. We're set at about 15 clicks out of 40 options on the rear shock. Don't be overwhelmed by the number of options. It just gives you far more ability to really fine-tune in on your target. And then the compression we have set wide open right now. So when the compression adjuster, the new Elka Stage 4 shock, has both compression and rebound adjuster as well as the preload, as we mentioned. So right now we can see that the compression is very light and very soft, and very quick, easy adjustment on the top of the reservoir to close that. So we're fully shut now, we're at full max, and I can hardly move that snowmobile. So again, we would have probably never set it that firm, but it gives us a big window to set whether we want to ride aggressively, quickly through the bumps with still that safety margin, or do we want to open them up and have a very comfortable, very compliant, slower speed kind of ride? So we have the Elka shocks installed. We have all 4 installed, and we're down here again. We're going to give the bumper a couple pushes and recheck our front ride height number. And we are right around 460 millimeters. So we're within 2 millimeters of before with the OEM shocks. So we've got a great starting point to hit the trails.